Hello, people of the internet. My name is JD Shadow. I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to keep making videos that delve into these sort of topics, but I feel like I keep seeing these time and time again. The idea that one particular forum, one particular thing sets everything on a tailspin, and there is really no way to get people to calm down for 2 seconds and do particular research, not just about the subject matter at hand, but about the source that is giving you the information. But yet, we still have to do this. We still have to tell people that there is such thing as nuance with these things, and what you hear may not be necessarily what is actually there. But this goes even more so when the particular forum in question is ResetEra. I don't think I have to say anything else about this. The second you see something and you see ResetEra as the byline, you should already be getting red flags. You should already be getting big sirens, big warning red lights flashing in your face as if it was trying to give you epilepsy. It's that damning to see them at the forefront of this. And there is a particular reason why. There's a lot of reasons why. But notwithstanding, it's a notion that their moderators purge anything, any sort of opinion that even remotely differs from what the party line is. It is the most neo-authoritarian website that we have ever seen. The most neo-authoritarian gaming website, gaming forum out there. They make you use an actual paid email in order to register for the website, something that NeoGAF used to do, but ever since the moderators and administrators, the same ones who used to bring NeoGAF into a cesspool before everything went down south with Tyler Malka and they went elsewhere to form this garbage website, and because of that, you run the risk of getting permabanned if you so much as hint of a differentiating point of view from these moderators. And keep in mind that these moderators' viewpoints are so neo-authoritarian, they go so far into that field that it's really hard to get them to come back to, saneness and reality. And this is coming from someone who identifies as pretty much a progressive. I believe in free colleges, I believe in healthcare for all, I believe in stuff like that, but I also believe that we have a problem with outrage culture right now. We have a really big problem with stuff like that where we have to get uptight over every little thing. And this is the epicenter of it seems, when it comes to gaming. But it goes even much further than that because developers seem to visit this site quite often. And they get the false narrative that the majority of video gamers agree with them. That everybody seems to fall in line with what they think. When in reality, they have purged, they have banned anybody who has even a hint of a dissenting viewpoint from them. They don't allow even the slightest bit of dissension. And when you have someone who is an administrator on ResetEra get so uptight and gets so, I hate to use the word for it, but triggered by someone who just calmly decides that they are going to disagree with him about a Nintendo game being worth playing based on the demo, and they decide to block them, and they decide to get all nasty about it before they block them. This shows you just what is going on. This is an administrator of a website in which other developers, big name developers, go to visit to get the air on what people think about video games and about social issues in video games. This is somebody who will go to the website and determine whether or not a post you made is akin to their rules. And keep in mind that if you're following their party lines, guess what? You seemingly get to do whatever you want. You can bully anybody you want, you can say anything you want toward anybody as long as you are thinking the way they think about certain topics. Case in point is Catherine Full Body, the Japanese version released just last week, and by now you're probably hearing about about the controversy that developed from this. Now, there is one particular thing that I need to bring up, which nobody is actually bringing up in of itself, but I feel like we need to touch upon it. But it involves a few particular endings to the storyline. Now, full disclosure, I haven't really played any of the Catherine games. I don't know any of the storyline that goes about this, but just seeing that it's ResetEra that is tagged in this gives me a sort of means to have to act, because as I've said before, this is something that is going to become more of a focus of mine. This is a website that needs to have their attitudes and their mindset checked. Somebody has to be the one to check. And so far, we've only seen some smaller YouTubers. We've only seen here and there a few people say, hey, we need to pay attention to this. And it's just here and there, just individual cases, not as a whole. Not as, okay, we need to have an expose about what exactly is going on. Why are all of these developers still treating them as they're being serious places to go for source? This is not the website you should go to. They are already having their mind made up. Keep that in mind. There is no convincing them otherwise. They already had their mind made up before they even went to report on the story. And they use inflammatory language. They use inflammatory ways in order to spin everything into what they want it to see. And not a single thing, even hard evidence to support everything someone who is saying in opposition has said to the letter, convinced them otherwise. And of course, because Twitter is Twitter, they are going to go into knee-jerk reactions, and then when they get called out on it, either they don't believe it, they get their minds made up, or they try to say, hey, that's what I thought all along, without admitting that they were wrong. Case in point, again, Catherine Full Body. There are a few endings in this in which the author of a ResetEra thread cites a Twitter thread which says that the endings were transphobic. Now, I am not going to spoil the endings for you here because other people have done so already. Keep in mind, I don't want to spoil the endings. However, if you want to see the endings in full, I'm pretty sure that if you go and search on YouTube or Google, you will find those endings. You will find the two endings in their entirety. And you will not only find the two endings in their entirety, but you will also find the truth about those endings. I am not going to spoil those here for you because unlike other places and unlike some other videos, I want you guys to be able to watch this without fear of being spoiled of the endings. But keep it in mind that what they have said is nothing like what is said in actuality. And ResetEra continued to go about this, even going so far as to think of whether or not they should not only ban discussion on Catherine Full Body because they knew they were in the wrong. They knew that they were completely backwards on this. They knew that many people were not in agreement with what they were saying about this thing. But they seemingly wanted to attack the producer of the game, Katsura Hashino, who has also been responsible for the Persona games, and they had created an entire thread based upon that. And it got even worse when they attacked his Wikipedia page. These are some of the most immature people I have ever seen. These are not progressive people. These are people who do not speak for me. Yet, they seem as though they're the only ones that are allowed to have agency in speaking about these topics. And if they don't say it, then no one else will believe it. That is something that has to stop now. Because, as I said before, this is the exact same website that let a 28-page thread about wanting to do unspeakable things about Republican pundit Tucker Carlson, somebody who I venomously disagree with on his opinions, when Smash Racism DC orchestrated an attempt of a home invasion. Thank God most of the people were not there when they did this. But ResetEra let 28 pages of this go where they're even calling for his death before someone even lifted a goddamn finger to do anything, to do even the littlest thing about it. They let it go for 28 pages where someone even did anything. This is the people who tried to dox a CD Projekt Red employee just because they didn't like how Cyberpunk 2077 was going. These are the people you're going to take seriously? These are the people you're going to go to for sources about something as sensitive as this? Especially when the depictions that they put out there are nothing like what was actually happening. Context matters here, but this is not even taken out of context. This is taken out of context and content. This just boils me over. Why are we taking this site seriously when their moderators and administrators purge any dissenting content from what they believe? It should not be them to curate what the opinion is, what the popular opinion is. And okay, you could say that, oh, it's their site. They get to do what they want. They get to have what they want. But keep in mind that developers go to this site. They go to this site and they look at it. And it seems like they don't go to any other site. This is the site they go to get the opinions on gamers. And if moderators and administrators are just going to purge things like any dissenting content from these kinds of eyes, and the only things that are allowed to fester are things like this that misrepresent endings of games in this manner in a day and age when we are so conscious about transphobia and about homophobia and stuff like that, where we are more diverse than ever and we are more conscious about these topics than ever. For them to misrepresent so badly, and yes, it's misrepresented so badly. Again, the only reason why I'm not referencing them here because I don't want to have a spoiler warning here, but to misrepresent them so badly and to have people not care. They didn't care what anybody else said. This is where they were going with it. This is the final narrative about this topic. They weren't going to have it any other way. They weren't going to have any dissenting viewpoint. They weren't going to listen to anybody. To have that be what happens is freaking irrational at the best. And the more I think about it, the more angry I get from this, because we as gamers know better. We are not homophobic. We are not transphobic. We are not in any sort of way these types of things. But we also know about creative freedom. Who knows why he did it the way he did it? We know all about how people can be creative and they can express themselves in different ways. Or if what they do on a piece of paper or in a video game represents how they feel about things in real life, or maybe they had different experiences in real life and they decided to put that into a game in which they can express how they felt or how a certain situation is right now, or perhaps they want to show how we all are so we can change, how we can have an emotional response to these things, that we can have some sort of immersion in these games. There are a lot of reasons why somebody could write anything, and this is the only conclusion that they ever had. This is the only conclusion that they could have gone to. It had to be that. It had to be bigotry. It had to be homophobia. How do you know that? How do you know that that's what it came to? How do you know that was the first thing on his mind? Was it maybe, oh, he had other games that had these types of characters? How do you know that? Did you go into his head? Did you go into his mind and say, oh, this is what you meant by it? Our interpretation of your story is how we view it, so that's how it is. And to hell with what your actual intentions were. That is ludicrous at the very best. And yeah, maybe I am wrong and they are completely correct, but I don't know either. I'm not going to make assumptions. I don't think that he is transphobic because I get what writing can do. I get how people can create stories. I know about creative freedom, and I know that you can separate what you write on paper from how you feel in real life. There is a difference there, and we know, we should know better because we've heard it for years out of the late and great Total Biscuit. He said it too, about every single gamer understands that. They should know that. They should live by it. But yet, because 6% of the gaming population who visits ResetEra are the ones that have all the power and have all the power of the narrative because these developers go to this site and these moderators purge everything that even remotely disagrees with them. That is extremely dangerous because what would the developers do with that? The fact that developers go to the site, they go to the site to get a finger on the pulse of what we think. And this is how they get them to do what they want. That's exactly what this is about. Remember, these were the same people who were trying to say this is how to make Persona 5 better. And they had some asinine reasons and ways to make it better, which were refuted by a lot of people on YouTube, I could say that. If you are a developer and you're listening to this right now and you're going to the site, stop. This is not the way to go for gamers. No, we are not that way. But we understand creative freedom. We understand individuality, individual freedom, individual responsibility. That's what we understand. That's what we get. We understand that. We don't want things to be preachy. We don't want things to become where that is the only thing about a certain character. That's all we ever are asking, is that they have complexity and depth to them. The characters in question have depth, and it's because of that that they are interesting, and we care about them. And keep in mind that these are endings. There's a whole story that leads to an ending. What about the rest of the story? What about the story that leads to the ending, as I said? And that goes to my last point, and I think no one else is talking about this. Why is no one angry that these endings were leaked in the first place? Why is it that no one is talking about why these endings were leaked? What was the point of someone going on Twitter or going on ResetEra and saying, hey, this is what happens, without so much as a spoiler warning on that Twitter thread? The only bright side about that ResetEra thread is that they put a spoiler warning there. It was not there in the Twitter thread. So why is it that it was not there? Why are we not saying, hey, don't spoil the ending? Warn us. Why are we not doing that? Why is all the hoopla of this about what happens in the ending instead of why did you spoil it for us? Maybe it's because they knew what they were trying to do from the very start. They don't want us supporting Atlas. For whatever reason, they don't want us supporting this particular studio. They don't want us supporting this producer. For whatever reason, and I have it in my head that it has nothing to do with this issue, and they're just astroturfing this issue in order to get another outcome for another reason. But this has nothing to do about that. But that is the story they're going with. Because, yes, that is what ResetEra does. They try to trick you into thinking that the majority of gamers are on board with this outrage culture. And even progressives, even harder left progressives, are not on board with this particular mindset. This is the most dangerous site in gaming right now. And I say that with absolute sincerity. This is by far the most damaging, the most vile, the most toxic, and the most dangerous website out there right now when it comes to gaming freedom. And if you are any type of gamer whatsoever, you have to take a stand with this. You have to, because look what's happening. This is not the first time that ResetEra has ever been cited for something like this. They have been cited many times. And how many times is it going to take before somebody says, enough? I am going to go on a rampage and say ResetEra needs to be stopped now. How many more of these are we going to see? How many more of the Game & Watches are we going to see? How many more of the doxes are we going to see? How much more of stuff like this Catherine Full Body thing we're going to see? How many more of the 28-page threads about killing a pundit are we going to see before something is done seriously about stuff like this? How much more are we going to allow? How much more of this are we going to be able to withstand? How many more developers have to be tricked into thinking this is the mindset of every single gamer out there? And if you're not on the board with them, then you are a bigot or homophobe or whatever they want to use in hysteria. How many more times are they going to be allowed to do this? Again, I'm not going to spoil the endings for you here. You can go on to any other video to see what those endings were, and I'm pretty sure you probably already know what they are, but for those who haven't seen it, I hope you are happy with me not revealing what those endings are, and I hope you understand why I did that, because I want this focus to be on what ResetEra did, and I want to have you be able to hear what is going on without fear of being spoiled of a potentially good game. And I implore everyone who is a gamer to hear us out, hear me out. And I thank you for taking the time to watch this and get some information about what exactly is going on, because ResetEra needs to be dealt with. I hope people share this with as many people as possible so we can get this message out, so we can get something done about this, because how many more of these types of incidents that have ResetEra's name plastered all over it do we have to go through before we get it that we have to do something? How many more of these types of incidents must happen before we say enough? We should have said that back when they were still running NeoGAF into the ground. It is time we did something about it. My name's JD Shadow, that just happened.